into form, through form, back into form, through form, out and back into form immediately, through form, out and back into form immediately, through form, out and back into the next form, through form, out and back into the next form. This is the cycle of existence for us as microcosmic beings, never ending, infinitely, never dying, simply jumping from one form to the next form, infinitely and forever. The form will expire. We will immediately jump into the new form in a nanosecond, because we are eternal beings, just like Amma, never ending, infinite and unlimited power, trying to express ourselves through these human forms. So we'll go out and back into the next form, go live through this form, come to a peak at the top, and then age out. The form will age out. Our microcosmic spirit will leave that form and jump back into the next form. Live through that form, wear that form out, leave that form, and animate the next form. This is the cycle of existence for us, the microcosmic beings, the microcosmic expressions of the totality, the macrocosmic being we call Amma, endlessly and forever, jumping into form, living through these forms. The form wears out, cannot keep up with us, so we will jump from that form into the next form, endlessly and forever, living through these forms, not to be confused as being the forms. We simply jump from one form to the next form, live through that form. As the form ages out, we will simply transform into the next form, endlessly and forever. This is the cycle of our existence. How you doing, family? Welcome to another Bantu Morpheus workshop. What I'm doing here is we're going to do a comparative critique of Philippe Matthews, who is on a virtual, doing a virtual presentation of his overall analysis and of the trauma experience, as well as the trauma experience that Africans in the diaspora are experiencing from the focus of Africans in America. But he's also doing a beautiful job. To me, this is one of the best presentations I have ever seen of his work that I have been viewing for the last 2 years solidly. And he did a really phenomenal job on this presentation, and I had to record it And what I want to do here for you is allow you to do two things. One, get all of the data and the insight that he beautifully presents here for you. And I want to encourage you to join his, go to his website and participate on whatever level you feel comfortable with getting involved with his training. But he absolutely deserves to be honored and respected for the comprehensive collection of data that he has put together to help not only African people throughout the world, and as a consequence to uplift and help the whole society of the world, of the humans, to evolve to a new level by shaking off all of this dysfunction of the mutated Africans who have come out of the Ice Age process, which has transformed them into these barbaric creatures that have to be now brought back into the human family slowly and surely over the last, well, we've been working on them for the last 2,000, 4,000 years, 6,000 years, trying to get them back into a higher level of humanity. This has been the real work that Africans have been doing with these mutated Africans. And this is really the true story of what's going on here that has all these labels of race and white supremacy and all of these false labels that the mutates have created in order to, I guess, deal with their emotional trauma of being first becoming albinos and then forced into 100,000 plus 300 years of being in the ice, having to live underground in caves for over 100,000 years and being mutated into these albinized mutates. And all of the megalomaniacal dysfunction that comes out of the whole traumatic experience that they have gone through with being mutates. And so I think that Philippe Matthews in this presentation, my God, is just, and I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm talking 30, 40 years, folks. I've never seen a more beautiful, masterful job that this brother has done in producing this comprehensive presentation. It's very long. I'll probably have to break this up into 4 videos in order for you to get it all. But the accumulation of data from all of these authors, scientists, psychologists, archaeologists, anthropologists that he has put together is a masterful job of articulating and explaining and educating people in general about the lies and the confusion and the megalomaniacal dysfunctional expressions that these poor mutated Africans have just been traumatized into. And this is why they have been like a virus or a plague on the planet, because of their trauma. This is their expression of their trauma, their jealousy of the Africans who were not stumbled into this becoming albinos and then becoming these mutated Africans who have lost all pigmentation, stripped of their humanity and their decency, and their connection to all things because of their ice experience. And they don't even know it. It's on a subconscious level. And what they have done to a lot of Africans in the world because we are all creatures of our environment. So if these creatures come into our environment with their mutated dysfunction and mental illness and all of the dysfunction, we are going to also be impacted by that. And so now we have inculcated a lot of this dysfunction and insanity into the overall society. And that has to be cleaned up. And since we're all connected, we all have to work together to clean these folks up. First, you got to wake them up. First, you got to wake up the Africans who have been confused by all of the nonsense and the insanity that these mutates have spewed for a good 4,000 years. It's just an unbelievable amount of confusion and misdirection and miseducation in order to hide their shame and their jealousy and their frustration with nature, God. They have interpreted what happened to them as God is going against them. This is how twisted their minds have become. They're angry at nature for making them albinos in the beginning. And then for having the ice age come, they're angry at the cosmos for letting the planet move in such a way from the sun that it caused an ice age, and they got caught in it. So now they're looking for somebody to blame. And whoever they're not blaming, then they're jealous of those that did not have to go into this mutated form. Now, so all of these machinations, all of this maniacal nonsense that they have created in order to deal with their shame and their behavior and what they have become, this is all a coping mechanism that they are expressing in order to try to get back to balance. And so this is not about blame. This is about having a clear analysis of what's happened and how we fix it. That's what this is all about, okay? So what Philippe Matthews has done here is compiled a phenomenal, accurate, informative, inspiring curriculum in this video that helps us to get a clear analysis and understanding of where we are, how we got into this mess, how they became the maniacs that they are. And it's not about calling names. That's the only way to describe their behavior. It's anti-nature, it's anti-life, it's suicidal. It's all of these problems that come from, this kind of being stuck in the kind of environment that they were raised in over generations. So it's going to take generations, hundreds and thousands of them, to clean this up. But we can speed this up by having a clear understanding of what happened to these mutated Africans, okay? And so I'm giving you all of this as an intro to what we're going to be experiencing here with what Brother Philippe Matthews is presenting. He's doing a webinar or internet interview with a brother who's running a YouTube channel that comes out of England. I kind of spliced all of that out because we have so much to cover. And I mean, no disrespect to this brother, African brother who was in England, who's presenting this. But in order, for the sake of time, I have to try to keep this down to a minimum. And this is coming from my perspective. This is Philippe Matthews, his footage, or his presentation that he gave on this brother's show. I will show a link here to that brother's show so you can see the original But for the sake of brevity, and to keep this as short as possible, which is not going to be possible because this actually took an hour and 40 some odd minutes for Philippe to present this. So I'm trying to edit out as much as possible and present it to you in either 3 or 4 parts so that you can get all this, because this is something you gotta have as a part of your being a human being. In order for you to be able to be the best human being you can be, you need this data, because you're born into this stuff. You need this data. Okay, so let's get started, and let me have you hear what Brother Philippe is doing this masterful presentation. And again, today is this is now March 27th. Okay, and we're going into, actually I'm shooting this video on March 28th. I'll probably present it and post it starting in March 29th of 2021. Okay, and but this was, I believe this was shot and aired. You'll see in a link that I'll post that when you go to the link and watch the original, I believe it was shot on March 23rd. So, okay, this is just so you'll have context. Let's see what we got here.
You guys, hold on. Okay, we're going to start out with our affirmation of power, prosperity, and protection, as we always do when we come onto the platform, and that is, I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people, and I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. So for those of you who know me, you know that I dedicate all of my programs to, and my entire ministry to, 3 goddesses, and that is, of course, my spiritual mother, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who says, "You are the thinker who thinks the thought that makes the thing," and Reverend Dr. Helen Carey, and Nana Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Now, this presentation is brought to you by, I released what we call, I guess the kids will call an EP, that's available on all of the streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Napster, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Nothing is wrong with Black people. Something happened to Black people. It's 7 sessions that I did where I talk about the deep-seated understanding of trauma. I presented some of this content to you when I first came to the UK via Andrew Muhammad. And so you can go and just download that, stream that, and take a look at it. Or take a listen to it and begin to understand nothing's wrong with you. Here's what happened to you. So what is first frequency of oneness? Our ministry, we help create a spiritual, psychological, and emotional barrier to the hidden signal of racial battle fatigue and racial domestic terror and violence. We remove the African and the African American from the effects of their false racial identities, which we call 3rd and 4th frequency. We're going to be talking about that momentarily. We help the African and the African American overcome their trauma bonding, capture bonding, and Stockholm syndrome to whiteness. And we did an amazing platform and conversation on that the last time I was with you. We are a culturally specific teaching ministry. We're exclusively for Africans and African Americans. We specialize in healing and removing the ancestral, historical, and incarnate trauma within Africans and African Americans. We help reveal the natural and original first frequency signal or vibration. And we're based on science, not self-esteem. So we don't necessarily care how you feel. We care how you live and how you move through your life. This is not a hyperbole. This is a science-based teaching ministry and process that we do. For those of you who've never heard of me before, I'm known as the Metaphysical-Morpheus. Some of you have called me, know my nickname that Lord Jamar gave me, Wrkshps Prime. I saw somebody put that out there in the chat. Love you too. You can go to Metaphysical-Morpheus.com to learn more, but I have a master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy, currently working on my doctorate in the same field. you can go to Metaphysical-Morpheus.com, and there's a 3-part series where you can kind of get some background story and history on how I came to be, what I went through in my life to become who I am today. As I used the quote by Les Brown, in order to acquire something that you've never had, you must become someone that you've never been. SHOC stands for Seeking Higher Omnipotent Conscious or Cosmic Knowledge. I'm the founding minister of First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity. And I'm also the founder of the SHOC Metaphysics Virtual Comedic Wisdom School. And I'm the host of the Philippe Matthews Show. That's many of you know me, and that's what Andrew was speaking of earlier when he was on last week or the week before that with us, talking about the Meghan Markle situation. I've authored over 19 books. I have this lecture is based on my master's thesis, Can Using Metaphysics, Meditation, and Affirmations Daily Heal the Trauma of Generational Poverty in African Americans? And then, of course, Baba Kaba, who just released his latest book, Shabaka Stone, about 3 days ago. Of course, Spirituality Before Religion. He refers to me as the Marcus Garvey of our time. And Mark Victor Hansen, the best-selling author in history, with Chicken Soup for the Soul, refers to me as the Oprah of the internet. All right, so let's get into it, family. First things first, there are no white people. So let's just get it in our heads and get it in our minds, get it in our hearts, that historian Barbara Fields describes the fictitious nature of race. She says anyone who continues to believe in race as a physical attribute of individuals might as well also believe that Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy are real, and that the earth stands still while the sun moves. Now, when we understand this, there's an invention of white people. I talk about this all the time. Some of you already know this history, but for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, the false race of white people was invented as a matter of law in the United States between 1664 and 1681 in response to Bacon's Rebellion. This false racial construct placed the African at the bottom of American society and stripped us of all of our rights. There is no biological validity to the false concept of race. White people or whiteness is not biological. It is ideological, having a detrimental intergenerational neurobiological effect on all African people in the diaspora. Now, there's a great book by Nancy Eisenberg called White Trash. Big read, about 400 so pages. But it's the history of whiteness and white trash and where it comes from and the mindset and the ideology and how they.
Now, I want to interject here also that what you're hearing here and everything we're talking about here has nothing to do with the spiritual side of the human, of the being part of the human. Everything that we're talking about and all of these impacts and all of this dysfunction further supports my concept that the spiritual perfect being that we are, that's trying to express itself through these forms, these human forms. This is what we're talking about when we talk about dysfunctional behavior. We're talking about this lack of control of the intuitive intelligence over the instinctive intelligence. The human form functions out of the instinctive intelligence, but that instinctive intelligence must be capped off and controlled by the intuitive intelligence of the spiritual, intuitive awareness that we are. This is the permanent, infinite thing that we are. We are the spiritual being. That's why we call ourselves human beings. That being part, that is the infinite part that we actually are, that never dies and just jumps from one form to the next form to the next form. And that's why you have my that animated graphic that I presented for you at the beginning of every one of my Bantu Morpheus movies. This is what I want to help you to comprehend, because this is the truth of what we are. And this will remove the fear, the terror, the horror, and the lies of this Christian, on all of these religions that these mutated Africans have created these religions. They've taken snippets and bits and pieces from the truth that we taught them when they crawled out of the caves. After we could finally get them to speak language, stop eating each other, stop killing each other, and stop barbarism, and we didn't do too good a job, because what they did was they listened enough just to learn our most powerful skills, and then they turned them on us. And that's how we got into the mess we're in right now. Because the Africans that did not go into the caves never became barbaric. So we are and always have been a very receptive, even the Native Americans that have encountered us and have interbred with us. These are the other forms of these Europeans that came out of the ice and came down in the form of Mongoloid Eskimos. And we interbreeded with them. We openly interbreeded with everybody, because that is the nature of Africans. We are all children of the one God. That's the way we see it. We're all one. There's only one spirit. There's only one human form. Race was something they created. We call it the human form. And all humans are the same. We're all the same microcosmic spirit that's trying to express its perfection through these forms. And we understood that. So when they went into the caves for 100,000 years and came out as these mutates, we continue to embrace them, and we teach everybody equally and openly, because we don't see ourselves as being separate. They came out with this segregative left side mentality that the ice created and nurtured and matured in them. So they became actually lopsided. They are off balance. When you get back to balance, then you see everybody as being connected and one. That's the whole concept of spirituality. All things have spirit on one level or another. So we're all connected through that ideology and identification as spirit, which is permanent and forever. Okay, so I want to interject that all of everything we're talking about and what Philippe is teaching here relates to us identifying the mistake we're making, or they're making, and they have infected a lot of Africans throughout the world, and African derivatives who are African Europeans. They could be African Native American. They could be African Asians, Eurasians. They could be African Chinese, Mongoloid, or whatever you want to call them. But we're all Africans. There's just that the ones that came out of the cave were mutated into Asians, into Arabs, into Mongoloid Eskimos, and all these Mongoloids and Europeanized pink people who don't have melanin. And so our job is to interbreed with them and to get as much melanin back into them to bring them back to balance. That's the work. It's going to be emotional. And again, we're trying to deal with it. We're doing two things. We're still trying to get back on track with the work we have already accomplished with getting this form to comply and to allow ourselves to express our perfection as far as we were able to get. And that's why we were able to build these monuments and all these stuff. The mutates came out and in their jealousy tried to destroy all our monuments and disrupt our forward motion, which is called evolution. So they have disrupted that over the last 6,000 years. But 6,000 years is a nanite in an infinite world with an infinite being. So we can handle this, ain't no big deal. And this is what you got to be educated about. That's why I'm doing these videos. They're not going to stop nothing. You can't stop God's motion. God's motion is evolution. You can't stop that. We are micro gods having a human experience. That's what this is all about. This marathon, All we did was what we're going through right now. The starting gun has gone off, and all we did was lift up our heads. We haven't even left the blocks yet and started to run around the track. We haven't done none of that. We haven't gone 1 inch on the track. All of this hundreds of years and thousands of years where we haven't gone an inch. You got to understand the context of this. You're an infinite being having a finite experience. We're micro gods having a human finite experience, and everything about humans, the human form, is finite, it's temporary. So even if the form disappears, the whole planet disappears, we're still going to exist. This is what you got to understand. This removes the fear and the terror. They can't scare you if you know the truth of what you are. Okay, and Philippe kind of gets it flipped here. He says the who you are is actually the what you are. And the who you are is the form. So that's how I know he really doesn't quite have it yet, but it's okay. He's moving in the right direction, and he's taking a whole bunch of y'all with him. And that's all I care about. We'll fix we can correct the little minor minutiae, the minor corrections, and to get him perfectly on track. We ain't shooting for that. We just, right now, we want to get started, we want to get going. Okay? So I just want to add that caveat. Let's move on.
Move, and as you have been treated, as you have seen how these people act, this group, you will begin to see the data as I begin to present this to you. She says that the history starts in the 1500s. It derives from British colonial policies dedicated to resettling the poor, decisions that conditioned American notions of class and left a permanent imprint. There's an old joke that says, anything that's wrong with America and the racism in America, always blame the British. So I'm gonna blame the white British, but not and the European British, but not my brothers and sisters in the diaspora. She says, first known as waste people and later white trash, marginalized Americans were stigmatized for their inability to be productive, to own property, or to produce healthy and upwardly mobile children. The sense of uplift on which the American dream is predicated. Now, if you understand what happened, this is what happened to us. They reversed it and flipped the script and made us the victims of this, when in actuality, if you really want to keep it real, they are the original niggers. They are the original waste people, the original levels of trash. Africans have nothing to do with this ideology. Now, she says, well into the 20th century, expulsion and even sterilization sounded rational to those who wished to reduce the burden of loser people on the larger economy. Now, this is great. This is American history, but also.
Now, I want to interject here and bring another book in here. This book is called The Iceman Inherit. No, actually, I'm sorry. It's I believe it's called The 12 Tribes. Let me bring this book in. And I've been trying to get, I think it's called it's the history of the 11 rival regional cultures of North America. It's by Colin Woodard. And it's called The American Nations. And in this book, they talk about how the first people that they sent over here to colonize America were they emptied the jails and the insane asylums to clean up Europe, and they dumped all of that garbage into America, and they sicked them on the Native Americans who were Africans and had some mix of Mongoloid people who came down from the north through Canada and Alaska, and began to interbreed with the Africans that were already here in North America. on down through Central America into South America. Or everywhere they went was nothing but Africans, because that's all there was on the planet before they came out of the caves. And that's all they were when they went in the caves, were Africans. There was no such thing as a Eskimo or a Chinese, a Japanese, a European. These things, these species of human forms did not exist prior to 10,000 years ago. They just came out of the caves. That's like yesterday. They just showed up. And that's why they have wreaked such havoc on the planet. But it hasn't been all bad, because we got an Elon Musk, okay? We got a few really, really good mutated Africans who still retain and are still expressing that perfection through these human forms. And see that what I'm introducing, Philippe Matthews brings you to a level. I bring you to a whole nother level. Okay, that's my job, is to bring you to this next level. All right. And so I just wanted to interject this, and I'm going to put this book in here so you can understand and see that this is what he's talking about when he's describing these people. This is the tribe of people that the kind of people that Philippe Matthews is talking about. And these folks have to be, you have to understand, this is who they are. This is, this is what they've become. It's not their fault, but it is what it is. And that's what I'm saying. As microcosmic beings or micro gods, we have unlimited power. We just got to learn how to use it and apply it to correct our problems. And this is what the journey of life is all about. That's why we're here. Okay. And I just want to add that in so you'll understand. Okay.
British history. The mid-19th century, when poor rural whites were categorized as somehow less than white, remember that's a false racial construct that was created, but within that exclusion from the 1%, they excluded their own European brethren and called them waste people. Their yellowish skin and diseased and decrepit children, marking them as a strange breed apart. The words waste and trash are crucial to any understanding of this powerful and enduring vocabulary. Throughout its history, the United States has always had a class system. It is not only directed by the top 1% and supported by the contented middle class. We can no longer ignore the stagnant, expendable bottom layers of society in explaining the national identity. White trash were dangerous outliers in effort to rebuild the Union during Reconstruction. And in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, when the eugenics movement flourished, they were the class of degenerates targeted for sterilization. So let's just be with that for a moment. We understand eugenics is European made, American made, and they were just like the concept of Hitler, they were looked upon to be terminated.
So this, and here I want to interject this. Again, what happens when the human form, the instinctive intelligence of the human form is allowed to dominate the person, when the person is allowed to dominate the being? See, the person, if it is mutilated, if it is dysfunctional, it sees things only as objects. Other human beings are objects, are things. They're not people. They're not worthy of being respected and considered and be given human rights and rights to be considered. They see you as an object. You are either useful or useless. And if they deem you to be useless, they'll kill you. It's just simple as that. And it has no emotional attachment to it because they don't see you as being worthy of or an equal human to them. So they would just kill you and they won't think nothing of it. And you got to remember, they used to eat their own babies, cook them and eat them because you were just an object, something you had to survive. They were just pure, raw, brutal survivalists. That's all they cared about. So this barbaric and brutal mentality, that is what form is. And this is what I said about the instinctive intelligence. The nature of the human form is brutal already, straight up, without being mutated in the ice and all the other nonsense, just straight up. That's the way the human form is. The instinctive intelligence is knee-jerk, incompassionate, halfway. That's why it's so barbaric. It lacks empathy. It doesn't have the intelligence. That's not a part of its intelligence. You, the microcosmic being, the spirit, you have to dominate this form, and then you will see compassion, decency, love, joy, and happiness. These are the things that the intuitive intelligence brings into the combination. When you combine and you dominate this pairing of the human form with the being. And that's why we actually should be called beings, being humans, instead of human beings with an S. We should be called being humans. But this is the way the language is constructed. Let's move on.
And to be rid of. This is what they do. But I needed you to have a taste of this history and understanding of this history, so that as we move through this work, you have language, context, and framework to be able to understand nothing's wrong with you. Something happened to you.
Brother Reverend,
Yes, sir.
Can I just say, within 10-15 minutes, you have destroyed everything we've been taught over the last. No, brother, don't laugh. Do you understand?
Are you serious? Come on, man.
You understand what I'm trying to say tonight, brother? Brother, are you listening, bro? He has, within 10 to 15 minutes, absolutely rerouted every single concept. Carry on, big brother. Carry on.
I love, hey man, I love what I do, and I love you, and I love your enthusiasm. I got to find a way to like get some DNA samples so I can just have you up on my dresser when I wake up in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Love me some Andrew Muhammad, family. So Dr. Jacqueline Badalore, all of you who know of her work from my show, she wrote a great piece of work, Birth of a White Nation. Her book was part of my thesis, review of literature, and part of my thesis. Irish Catholics in the US were portrayed as anti-American, not full citizens, and as white Negroes. Understand, these are the original Negroes. These are the original niggers.
Come on.
It is not us. It is not us. Understand this, family. This is the history now. So I want you to understand, whenever they call you the N-word, they are saying that to themselves. Baldwin asked the question, why do you need a nigger in the first place? Because if they don't have a nigger, they realize they are the nigger. And this is what they have done to themselves, and of course, subsequently around the world.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up at this point, and we're going to take a break. Okay? Into form, through form, back into form, through form, out and back into form immediately. Through form, out and back into form immediately. Through form, out and back into the next form. Through form, out and back into the next form. This is the cycle of existence for us as microcosmic beings, never ending, infinitely, never dying, simply jumping from one form to the next form, infinitely and forever. The form will expire. We will immediately jump into the new form in a nanosecond, because we are eternal beings, just like Amma, never ending, infinite and unlimited power, trying to express ourselves through these human forms. So we'll go out and back into the next form, go live through this form, come to a peak at the top, and then age out. The form will age out. Our microcosmic spirit will leave that form and jump back into the next form. Live through that form, wear that form out, leave that form, and animate the next form. This is the cycle of existence for us, the microcosmic beings, the microcosmic expressions of the totality, the macrocosmic being we call Amma, endlessly and forever, jumping into form, living through these forms. The form wears out, cannot keep up with us, so we will jump from that form into the next form, endlessly and forever, living through these forms, not to be confused as being the forms. We simply jump from one form to the next form, live through that form. As the form ages out, we will simply transform into the next form, endlessly and forever. This is the cycle of our existence.